Hello friends. You know, those that have followed my videos in Spanish, now I'm making a video in English telling stories that I've already told in Spanish, but I have a growing English speaking audience, and so I'm going to tell some of these stories in English. I've lived the past almost 40 years in Mexico, and in the beginning very poorly so, as a hobo, as a vagabond, literally roaming from town to town. But there was a time, I'd say about approximately 20 years ago, that I was living where I have lived most of that time, in a region of Mexico known as the Costa Chica of the state of Guerrero in southern Mexico, about 150 miles south or southeast, I guess you would say, of Acapulco. And anyways, at that particular time, as I am now old and I get Social Security, and for the past about 12 years, 13 years, I've had a YouTube channel which gives me a little tiny bit of income, but it helps out because I get the bare minimum in Social Security, about $500 a month. So combined with a couple $100 a month that I get in this here YouTube, you know, I survive, but I still can't pay rent. So I'm still homeless technically, although I don't like to put that label on myself, but I am homeless in the United States as I roam around the U.S. But anyways, I'm going to tell you about a story that happened about 20 years ago. I was living on the coast, and at that time I had no work. My money had all ran out. I mean, absolutely, completely ran out. And so like many Mexicans, many of my friends, or the majority of the people in this area, they all had the desire to go to the north, to the United States to work, except that I had the advantage of I hold U.S. citizenship, so it was, that part of the journey was a little bit easier. I didn't have to pay a criminal to smuggle me into the U.S. But I had no money, and but I decided that well, I was going to go anyways. You know, I had to go to the north to get more money because I ran out and I had no income at that time. My plan was to take some back roads and take the shortest route because I had to walk. I didn't have enough money for the bus, you know, and I don't know how much the bus cost at that time, but I didn't have $100, which is, it cost at least $100 at that time. Today I think it's like $200-300 to take a bus from the border to southern Mexico where I was living. But at that time it might have cost $100, $150, something like that. I didn't have that. I mean, I had maybe like $10. You know, that's about it. So I had to take I planned the shortest route that I could, walking, you know, walking and whatever luck I could have along the way to get me up to the U.S. I was no big hurry, but I had to go. And I knew because Mexican people are very good people, I didn't feel that I would starve to death. I really didn't have worry about starving to death in that journey. But my plan was to start out heading basically north. The highway runs northwest to southeast along the coast, but I wanted to cut through the mountains, you know, because it was shorter, and to go directly north. And it was more tranquil in that area than going through big cities with, you know, it's not safe, actually. So, but I was waiting for a phone call from my stepmother and my dad, who was living at that time, to come through to the town. They have like a public phone in the town that you can call. And I was waiting to receive the phone call, and unfortunately they didn't call until late because I wanted to leave daylight, but they called like right at dusk, you know, right a little bit before dusk. And well, whatever, but I was already packed and ready, had my, well, actually what I was using at that time was these little shopping carts, and I had my sleeping bag and my tent and all my crap, you know, on that little sleeping cart. You know, I must have looked like a fool. Maybe I did, probably did, but you know, dragging that shopping cart with my junk, so I didn't have to carry it on my back, and I was going to cross the mountains of Mexico like that. And I think back on it, I thought, wow, but whatever. But that's what I did, and it was sort of late. Anyways, the road, it was a dirt road that I had decided to take. Just, I would say, not even 500 meters outside of the village. I had to cross a river and then start on this road. Criminals, because it is a criminal region, today it's even more of a criminal region, but criminals had put up a barrier with the intention of assaulting, which is common in parts of rural Mexico. They cut logs and brush and whatever, and they literally shut off the road. And then when the people stop that's coming in a car, they jump out of the bushes, maleza they say in Spanish, they jump out of the bushes and assault them. Well, anyways, I was walking. They weren't expecting an idiot like me to be walking. You know, this was mainly made for rich people that have cars. But so I was walking, pulling my shopping cart behind me, and come across this barrier, and oh well, I just climbed over it and continued on. I had gone maybe 200 meters, 300 meters down the road when I heard behind me somebody shouting. In Spanish they said, "Párate, gringo," you know, which means stop, and then using a not pleasant term for Americans, gringo. They had stopped, gringo, is basically what they said. So I looked around and I saw this jerk, what I was going to say, this assailant, with holding a machete above his head in an aggressive form, you know, and motioning me to come back. I said, "F you," and I said, you know, it's crazy, you know. I said, I didn't have any money. I had like $10. I had no money, and you know, they wanted to steal my tent and sleep. But I'm not going back. You know, this is a benefit of being poor. You know, there are benefits to being totally poor. You have nothing to steal, you know. And I thought, this is, you know, if he's going to assault me, come, you know, come and assault me. I said, screw you. I don't know what I said, but I cursed at him, and I kept walking straight, you know, with valor, man. And I kept walking straight, and I didn't hear anything, silence, you know, and I was expecting at any time to feel a machete chop on the back of my head, you know, but just kept walking and walking. I must have walked a kilometer, I'm serious, without looking back. I just kept walking. I didn't run, just pulling my shopping cart, and I kept walking and walking. And after about a kilometer, I finally stopped to rest at a little curve in the dirt road, and I looked back, there was nobody behind me. Wow. But anyways, I continued my, in fact, I slept because it was night now. I said I had left at dusk, and it was now getting dark, so you know, you can't walk for many reasons. The animals, the snakes and whatever, it's not safe to walk at night. So I found a little brush alongside the road, and that's where I camped. I mean, only like, what, like a kilometer away from where they wanted to assault me, but with any fear, with valor. You know, when you live my type of life, you have to be valorous. You can't be scared. But anyways, continued my journey through that region, and you know, fíjate, they say in Spanish. You know, believe it or not, the next day, just walking along the road and getting close to another village. I was now in Oaxaca State. I had left from Guerrero State, and it was right on the border of Oaxaca State. I was now in Oaxaca State, but continuing on these back dirt roads. This young kid, teenager, had you know, confronted me on the road, and started talking relatively aggressively. He was a young kid. I mean, he was like maybe 14, 13. I had no fear of him, you know, but he seemed like he had not good intentions, right? And he started saying, what are you carrying? What do you got in there? You know, so I let him see. I said, you know, it's my lona, my tarp, my clothes, you know, sleeping bag. You know, I let him look at the stuff so he could see that I didn't have anything of value. And while he was checking out my stuff on the road, this car goes by, and he's like motioning to him, hey, look, you know, making motions like, you know, let's assault this guy. I mean, I could figure his sign language, you know, but they just looked at him as a nut and continued on. Well, he continued to talk to me, and then he says, hey, let's go down to that tree in that field over there. He wanted me to go in the field. I mean, assailants, these kid assailants in Mexico are idiots. I mean, but they're idiots here in the U.S. too, but damn. You know, I thought, no, that's all right, dude. You know, I mean, I'm going. You know, it's nice talking to you, and I'm continuing. You know, just in less than 24 hours, I was a victim of an attempted assault twice just leaving this region. But anyways, continued on the road. This school bus, it was public transportation at that time, but it was like an old American-style school bus, comes along and passes me, and then stops a little further ahead. And this lady sticks her head out the window and motions me to come on. And so, all right, and you know, she was giving me a ride on the public transportation, you know, and she was just being kind, and she turned out to be a school teacher. And she motioned me on, she paid the fare, and I got on the bus and took me to another little village, Martires de Tacubaya was the name of the village that she had taken me to. And when I got off the bus, I told her thanks and I was going to continue on, but she insisted on bringing me to her house and feeding me. Very, very nice woman. I mean, it was just, that's why I love Mexico. I mean, this is the way people are. And maybe it was, excuse me, payback for the 2 times they had tried to assault me the previous day, but you know, that was nice enough. Then she hooked me up with this another guy that was going to the next small village further on in the mountains, and he gave me a ride, and he let me stay, camp out in front of his house for the night, and also fed me. You know, in Mexico, if they invite you to their house, they're going to feed you. That's for sure. They're going to feed you. And these are poor people. I mean, these are not rich people. These are people that live in mud shacks, you know, in poor houses, but they're good people. But anyways, continued on my journey. Walked and walked and walked. By the time I got to a town called Cacahuatepec, you know, I was pulling this shopping cart with all this junk. I even had cooking stuff on it. I had pots and pans and a grill and all that, and I was tired of carrying all that. I said, you know, I'm going to have to abandon all, including the shopping cart. You know, I'll just put I think I must have had I don't remember clearly. Yeah, I must have had a backpack. Yeah, I did have a backpack. I remember it was Tor. It was a cheap backpack from Walmart, and it was Tor, and I using wire and made little holes. I had to seal it up because the cierre, what do you call that? The zipper was no longer functional. That was my backpack at that time. I was poor, man, you know, but put all the valuable stuff, my tent, sleeping bag, and anything, you know, valuable as far as clothing, survival stuff in there, and decided I'm going to have to get rid of the grill, the pots, the pans, and the chopping cart, and whatever else that I had that I really didn't need, because I was just tired of pulling all that. And so I just went to the town square, Zocolo they would call it, or Parque, you know, the little town square, and there was a market right there. And I asked somebody, I said, do you think it's all right that I just, you know, set up, you know, sell some stuff here? And he said, yeah, you know, lay your wares out there on the ground and you know, sell it, you know. And I did, and they bought it because I sell it cheap. You know, in a short amount of time, they bought my pots, my pans, the grill, and the chopping cart. All of it. I mean, it didn't take long. I'd say in an hour or two. Continued my journey. Walked and walked and walked. When I got close, well, I didn't say close, but I'd say I was probably maybe 50 kilometers, 40, 50 kilometers south of a city in the state of Oaxaca known as Huahuapan de Leon. Had walked that entire distance when this man who was a vendor, he had this big box of, I don't know, he went to these towns, he was a roving vendor, you'd call him, I guess, a salesman for something, but whatever he sold. And I had just stopped at a bus stop to take a rest. You know, the bus stops in Mexico are actually much nicer in the United States because, you know, they have a place to sit and they have a cover, you know, for the sun or the rain, and even in rural areas they're all over the place. I wish that was like that in the U.S. But it was just a resting point for me before I continued on my journey. And he started talking because people are friendly; they'll talk to you. And here, I mean, you stop at a bus stop, who's going to talk to you? Nobody will talk to you. But and when he found out that I was walking to the north, which I was, I said, you know, I mean, I wasn't lying. I mean, he said, where are you going? Well, I'm walking to the United States. I need to go get work. I don't have money for the bus or something. He invited me to get on the bus that he was waiting for to take him back to the city where he lived, and he said he'd pay my wage, what do you call it, the bus fare. And so, but when I got on the bus and we were sitting together, he begins his preaching. He turns out he was a Jehovah's Witness, right? And the whole journey, I didn't have a chance to even look out the window at the scenery. I mean, the whole journey he was preaching, going on and on and on about whatever they believe in, you know, Jesus Christ, this and that, and who knows, whatever. When I get to Huahuapan, he insisted that I go to his house. I mean, I wanted to continue on my own. I mean, I thanked him for paying the fare, but, you know, you feel obligated, you know, and now he's like, you know, now he has his hooks in me because he paid my bus fare, so now he's going to take me to his house, which he did. And but the good thing is he helped me get work. I was able to work. He got me a job, and cleaning a field that they were going to plant corn in. I think I had a hoe. I think they gave me a hoe and a machete or something. But anyways, I worked a week, and then as soon as they paid me, I wanted to go north, but the money that I earned in that week that I worked, I right away paid for the bus fare from Wawapan to Tampico, Tamaulipas. That's the extent of whatever. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was the minimum wage at that time. But whatever it was, that's what the bus fare covered. I mean, I was back to zero again, but at least I had made a huge jump in my journey, and so I paid that. I remember, and it was a second class bus. It was the cheapest bus in the terminal that I could find to get there. And I remember that when I was waiting in the waiting room, there were these young guys that looked shady. I mean, even 20 years ago, I already had learned to be able to detect shady people from normal people. And as old as I am now, it's easy enough in both sides of the border. You can tell who you can trust, who you can't trust. Pretty good life experience will tell you that. And I seen these young guys, and they looked like the shady type. And they were looking at me and sort of laughing and pointing at me and whatever. But whatever, what could I do about it? I mean, they didn't say nothing to me, but they were paying attention to me in a way that I should have really, the red light should start flashing in my head. But I was getting on the bus, so what? They were getting on the same bus. When I was on the bus with all the adventure and all of the traveling and whatever, I was tired. It was an all-night bus, and I fell asleep. I put the same rickety old backpack that I told you that was all tied up, a piece of junk with nothing of value, but valuable to me. My lona, my tarp, my tent, and maybe some clothing, toothpaste, toothbrush, comb. These are important things to somebody that doesn't have nothing. And that was all in the backpack. Get to Tampico, wake up, time to get off, look up for my backpack, and it's not there. Can you imagine that feeling? Can you imagine it's like a sinking feeling? And especially when that's all you own. That's all I owned. I had nothing more than the clothes on my back. And, well, whatever. Are you going to cry? I'm not going to cry. F it, It's gone. And I knew who done it. It was these assholes that were planning to take advantage of me. They probably got off at some little village out in the middle of the night somewhere and said, hey, this gringo's sleeping, let's take it. And they did. Whatever. I looked and see how much money I had. I had enough money, just enough money for the bus fare from Tampico. I mean, if you don't know this area, it won't really mean too much, but from Tampico to the next stop, Estación Manuel, in the state of Tamaulipas, which is the last state before Texas. And but I was still several hundred miles, because I was at the very bottom of Tamaulipas. It's still several hundred miles from the border. And the distance was, maybe 30, 40 kilometers at most. And that was it. That was back to zero with money again. So I get on, but it was a little bit of help. I didn't have to walk. Get on the bus, pay the ticket, go to Estación Manuel. When I was in Estación Manuel, I started noticing that people getting off, people getting on, people getting off. And I thought, I wonder if I can how long I can go on this bus before they kick my ass off. I mean, hey, when you're indigent, when you're, because that's territory I didn't have to walk. So the next town was another 30, 40 kilometers down the road, called Aldama. And so I just stayed seated. I didn't move. And lucky as it turned out, the bus started up and nobody noticed. And like I said, people gotten off, other people gotten on, but I was still on the bus, even though my ticket was only to Manuel. And went on to Aldama. When we got to Aldama, the next town was a big jump, maybe like 100 kilometers to the next town. And I thought, wow, let's see if I can go this next jump. But, the bus companies in Mexico aren't that stupid, And this time, the bus driver decides to do a count. He goes, down the aisle, and he's counting everybody to compare it with the tickets. So I knew that I was going to be caught, you know. So while he was doing the count, I thought, why should I wait for him to ask for my ticket that I didn't have? So I got up and, you know, I squeezed by and said, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom, left the bus, and then disappeared for a while until the bus took off. Well, at least I made it to Aldama. It was a little bit closer. From there, I started to walk and walk. You know, and I tell this story because it's true. You know, some of the things I had lost, like a comb. What were the other things? A comb, rastrillo. You know, at that time I shaved. But anyways, I don't remember some of the other. I think a hat. Oh yeah, my gorra, my hat, my cap. And here I was walking along the road, and I started to find things. I remember finding a comb, and I remember finding a cap. You know, and both those items. And the comb was all right. It was just, I don't know, it fell out of somewhere. And I found the comb, picked it up. I found the cap a little later on and picked it up. You know, it's like God gave me those things. You know, I didn't have them, so now I'm going to find them alongside the road. And I took them to the very next creek, you know, a little stream that I came to, and I washed them just with water. Washed the cap and washed the comb real good. And now I had a comb and now I had a cap, so I was advancing, right? Because I had nothing. Continued to walk on. Walked and walked and walked and walked. It's a long walk, that highway. I don't remember the number, but that highway from Aldama, or from Tampico, but I made it as far as Aldama, to Matamoros on the border. It is a long walk. I mean, I still was hundreds of kilometers away, but so what, you know? When you have nothing to lose, you have nothing to lose. So, walked and walked and walked and walked. And I remember after walking all day, one of them, I don't know, it was the first night, second night, third night, I don't remember, but the one night, there was no place. I was tired. I walked well into the night. I walked until my body wouldn't take it anymore. And in fact, I had laid down. I'd walk, and the road was, in Mexico, the highways, even the major highways, become empty at night because it's just not safe to travel at night. I mean, there's right down to zero. There's hardly any traffic at all. And I didn't have not a tarp, not a sheet, nothing. But I was tired, and so I thought, well, I'm just going to lay down alongside the road, literally alongside the road for just a little bit, get a little shut-eye, right? And there was no cars around, nobody around.